Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not even sure if Swim is here.
Yeah, no, I'm here. What?
I never know with Swim. Sometimes he's like still in a game of Gwent when we go live. But welcome to the Gwentlemen Talkshow.
I'm still in my game.
See, told you. So he's not technically here. With the lovely complexities Petrify. What up, Petrify?
What's up? The roof. How are you doing? I don't know.
And we also have GameKing, who's currently actually in Poland for the Gwent Open tournament this weekend. And GameKing's a little bit quiet, so before you all complain about that, we're aware.
Sorry.
I hope you guys are good at lip reading.
It's all good. And yeah, so this week is tournament week. We haven't really got a lot of other Gwent news. Swim, is there any other Gwent news?
There's a lot of people that aren't happy with this game. I don't know. So in terms of Gwent news, there isn't a lot. However, it is decently likely that there will be a patch following the Gwent Open. Now, it completely depends on like the nature of the letter that they said, because like some people are saying there's not going to be a patch because they indicated it would only be like between seasons. But honestly, depending on how you read the letter, there is still a good chance that they only meant that to be in the place of the future. And some of what they said has indicated that there could actually be a patch sometime next week, like some kind of a minor balance patch. That's purely speculatory, though.
Wait.
You heard it here first. Yeah, so Gwent's not been particularly exciting, but they did say they weren't going to change anything before the tournament. So I guess we should talk about the tournament. So GameKing, how are you feeling? You feeling prepared?
Yeah, I feel prepared. I can say it, I have monsters, and only if red I get counted with like Igni in every deck, Spheres, and so on. But besides that, I'm confident to win. Or get to the final.
Yeah, I think Spheres is quite likely to show up in this tournament, and I think anyone who's not prepared their decks for Spheres is maybe, taking a big risk.
Yeah, I think I could the risk, but maybe I just hope for the best. And maybe I hope to get the opponent that actually doesn't have this risk.
Yeah, because we don't have the brackets yet, do we? They've not been posted.
That is correct.
Oh, so it's going to be drawn tomorrow. That's very intense. Do you have any preferences?
I'm not gonna get Super JJ because he tends to counter the lineups, right? And I think Shaggy also, always tries to counter something. But besides Shaggy, JJ, and Arzikov, my practice partner, I want to get 4 out of 7 possible opponents. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, and this is something that a lot of people are kind of talking right now. I've seen it like as a question in my chat, and like people on Reddit are talking. What do we think popular decks are going to be at the Open? Because we asked this last week, but we have 2 completely different guests, and one of them is also playing in the tournament. So obviously you've had a lot of time to speculate about what you expect others to bring. Like, what do we think are going to be the most common strategies, and do we think there's going to be any sneaky stuff that people might try to do? Petrify, you got anything?
Well, I think definitely we see dwarfs, obviously. I think we see consume.
You think people aren't going to ban dwarfs? You think there's going to be 1 or 2?
Yeah, there'll definitely be a couple people who won't ban dwarfs, I think. But I think Henselt will see pretty high representation as well, because in the format with like the fixed coin, bringing Henselt is just like really safe. Even if it's not the best ladder deck, it's just like a free win when you go second usually. So, and I think we'll see like Nilfgaard, Spies is the other one. Yeah,
Nilfgaard,
that's my prediction.
Spies. Yeah.
GameKing?
I think Nilfgaard Spies is still a bit broken.
I think 8 dwarfs, 8 Nilfgaard Spies. And I think actually like dwarfs will get banned every time, but maybe like 1 twice.
I think so too.
Yeah, and then
there might be 1.
Yeah, and then the 4th deck is Skellige. I think most players have Skellige. I already heard that some players may don't have Skellige, at least 1. And I think I can't type more, but and then like the 4th deck is either Henselt or Risky Monster.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, the Hansel is obviously good against Monster, if you take against it, but yeah, with Monster you never know, it has big points, so yeah, also if you get countered, you can still win.
I mean, honestly, in my mind, the biggest question in terms of like how this tournament will shake out is like how much consume we expect to see. Because I do expect some people to run it, but not everybody. And I'm quite curious, like what you guys think the ratios might be. Do we think like 2 people might bring it, like 4 or 5 people?
It's at least 1. I can say. And I already heard about. It's at least 2 people, and I already heard about 3 Hansels and 2 monsters.
3 Hansels and 2 monsters, huh? Leaks.
The thing is, Hensel's quite safe in the tournament because you know if you're going first or second. So we'll see this quite a lot. We saw this in the Challenger, for example, when as soon as a player knows that they're going second, they're red coin, then that's when the Hensel comes out. But I guess on the flip side, if you know that your opponent is bringing Hensel and you know roughly when they're going to play it, they're going to play it when they're going second, you can maybe try and utilize that to your advantage because it is quite predictable, when people are going to be playing the Hensel decks.
Yeah, like for example, I think Emir Spice is good against Hensel. You have the answers to the Spice, you just count the Spice and something circle. And then you can kill the Hensel target, so if you can manage to queue the Spice into the Hensel, I think you are maybe slightly favored, 55-60 maybe, depends.
I just want to see someone swears GameKing. Not you, GameKing. Not you, GameKing. Hensel's stuff. That would be really funny because I think we'll see a lot of swears.
I think we might.
In probably
we'll see
every
Mill?
Potentially, yeah.
That's the other question as well. I mean, do we expect anybody to bring Mill? Because I'm really thinking that 1 or 2 people might try it. It had some decent like high ladder standings, not necessarily like very commonly, but a couple of players got like decent high ladder standings with like Mill variants. And it is kind of risky using your Nilfgaard slot on that because Nilfgaard is going to be, one of your relatively powerful slots. But at the same time, it could easily pay out, especially with the ban format.
I think Swears doesn't have a bad matchup, really, right? Like, and if it does, like you said, you can just ban it, like right now. But then the rest of Mill kind of took a big hit in the cold fix with Shillard getting nerfed.
I think it was at least a warm fix, Petrify.
No, that was a cold one, man. That was really cold. Yeah. Maybe it was warm fixing if you're in Australia, but everywhere else is a pretty cold one.
The other thing that's really interesting about tournament meta is things like weather and locks, because at the moment we're not really seeing much weather on the ladder, and we're not seeing many locks on the ladder, which means that people aren't really running weather clear. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of engine decks people take the risk of bringing, because there are engine decks where if you get your units shut down, greedy consume, for example, it's not so fun. But if you can get away with those engines, I think like that maybe a tournament is the place to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, we definitely might see a showing for something like Axeman as well, just like based on what you're saying, there's not a lot of weather clues going around, and that is absolutely a deck that can really punish that.
I think the problem with weather right now is it's super low tempo in general, and you can just pretty much just outpower weather and just sit in it, unless it's Axeman. Exactly. I think Axeman is the only one that actually benefits from weather, but every other deck you just kind of like, oh, okay, 2 points a turn, that's funny. I'm playing 14-point bronzes every turn, good luck. Like,
yeah.
See,
like,
what were it sounded like 2 people tried to start talking, and I didn't want to get in there, but.
Well, I was going to say that I've been playing some Cursed Northern Realms, and I actually found out that Ragnarug is a spell. Drought is not a spell, but Ragnarug is a spell, so then you can use that to synergize with your Kidweni Revenants, and that's actually kind of a little bit, that's quite fun because it gets you a bit of tempo and stuff, and because no one's running Weather Clear, like I've just been Ragnarugging everyone, it's been pretty fantastic, but I don't think we'll see that at the tournament realistically.
The problem I think with Cold Weather in Northern Realms in the tournament is, after round 1, everybody will then stake everything in one row, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
With the row limit, you can only stake 9 things. that kind of is good for the weathers, the roll limit, but I think it's still, round 1 it's maybe good, but in round 2 then you probably.
Yeah, that's another one of the biggest problems about Gold Weathers right now is that when you're running Gold Weathers, you need to pair them with some kind of row punish, which can be something like Lacerate, something like Hailstorm, but it can also be something like, just some movement, like the Vreehead Brigade or the Mahakam, the Dwarven Mercenary, which are effectively a form of row punish because they force you, to unrow stack, right? And the problem with that right now is just there's not really enough effective ways off of like punishing row stacking in terms of like this kind of effectively slightly power crept version of the game that we find ourselves in. So it's really hard to actually just gain value that can't just be countered by row stacking right now.
But effectively, what GameKing is saying is that if you want to win round 1, you should bring Gold Weather. So Adzakov is probably running Gold Weather, is what we've established from this conversation. Which it's a shame. I really hope Adzakov does well this tournament because he's such a lovely guy and he's a good player as well. And he's not never lucky. He's never lucky. That's what we'll say. Like Petrify has all the bad ladder luck, and Adzakov has all of the bad tournament luck.
I don't know, man. I'm just glad Unseen Elder isn't a leader that people are bringing anymore because after the Gwent Slam and the Challenger, everyone that's playing that leader seems to be extremely unlucky. So I don't know what it is. Yeah, no. But maybe it's different with a Rakus Queen, right?
Yeah.
It's just Unseen Elder that's just cursed. They should add that tag to it.
We'll give him the curse tag.
Yeah.
Obviously, so some of us are displeased with the amount that the alleged cold fixed recently has changed, but we also know that there is going to be some changes. If not 1 week from now, it'll be 2 weeks from now with the season change. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, what are we all anticipating? Obviously, some kind of dwarf nerfs, but what would you actually like to see nerfed in dwarfs, and what do you think would be better to see across the board as well in terms of like some other nerfs to something else or some other buffs? What are we hoping for? Petrify?
In terms of what I'm anticipating, I have no idea because, to be honest, when they nerfed Foglet and buffed Enforcer, I feel like they're throwing darts at a dartboard and seeing what lands. So I have no idea. But in terms of dwarfs, we know that we'll be taking a hit. I think they'll nerf Poly. And probably I don't know how. Maybe make skirmishes boost instead of strengthen. Yeah. And then maybe Ithleen needs a really big nerf. That card is just completely busted. And probably Yorvith Med will get some sort of little bit of fine-tuning. I don't know, that's the one I'm iffy on because, it's meta-dependent. But, the thing with Scoia'tael is, right, if you play lots of small units, Ithleen Tremors just wrecks you, but then if you play big units, Yorvith Meditation just wrecks you, so, I don't know. That's where I'm at with Scoia'tael.
Yeah, I agree.
Just play no units, then you won't get wrecked.
Yeah, just play no units, Petrify.
Yeah. Just, I don't know, I'm not very good at that.
I don't know, what do you think, GameKing?
Yeah, I think the skirmisher should maybe go to boost by 3. And then the Poly is already nerfed by 3 stats then. It's only big value then if you manage to get a skirmisher with Barclay. But yeah, the Eitlin, I also agree on the Eitlin nerf. Has to, it's just 2 big points in a long round. It's 40 plus points sometimes, and also it limits the design space for future bronze spells, right?
Yeah.
If there's some
exactly
really good bronze spell, then they have to nerf it, otherwise it will be broken with Scoia'tael. So I would really like to see the nerf on the Eitlin and not on the Tremors, because Tremors on its own is okay, in my opinion. I think it's the nerf. Eitlin and Skirmish, I think it's already enough. But Meditation, maybe Meditation is also too good, but I like Meditation because you have to do some small maths, so...
Quick maths.
Yeah.
I think Meditation is fine-ish, but that can be debated.
Yeah, I actually, I'm in the camp of thinking meditation would be totally fine as a 1-strength unit personally. I know a lot of people are, it's like kind of more threatened by that card, but I honestly think it's very close to being kind of where it wants to be. I don't know, Jaggerous, what do you think?
See, I actually think if you tweak dwarfs, the meta is likely to become very diverse. Because, so, I was playing a Shoop deck, just for fun. I was playing this Nilfgaard Shoop deck, and the thing is, like, it was surprisingly, like, you lose. Don't get me wrong, you lose. But you don't lose by a lot most of the time, Like, it is usually actually surprisingly close, even when you're playing meta decks. Like, I don't find there's a lot of games that often where you lose by huge numbers, except maybe dwarfs. So then, if you tweak them, I feel like... I'm not saying Shoop is going to be viable, but... Actually, I won my game of Shoop, just for the record. But I'm not saying that everything is going to be viable. But I think realistically, if they make some changes, you'll actually see a lot of other factions start to show up a lot more. Just because there are other factions that are relatively consistent. They just don't quite have the points. Things like maybe alchemy in Nilfgaard, maybe some kind of great swords and more kind of engine focused decks. I think that honestly tweaking dwarfs will help. I just don't know the best way to do it other than, like you said, changing the strength into a boost. Like, that's the obvious one, but where do you go from there?
Hey, you said Shoop's not viable, but I hit GM with Shoop only, and I think Pumpkin did too. So Shoop is good, man. Shoop is really good. That Shoop Hunter is actually totally busted. If you can build a decent deck around Shoop Hunter, that card is insane. There are other two, kind of, but Shoop Hunter is insane. But in terms of Alchemy Nilfgaard, I think it's actually really, really strong. It's mostly because of slave drivers though. Slave drivers are completely busted as well. Yeah. Slave drivers are up to 30 points sometimes. It's insane.
So do we about that topic? I mean, slave drivers and Elven Scouts and Squirtle, some people have said that they're a bit overtuned for kind of what they are, which is that bronze cards that are able to play other bronze cards, typically solid ones, because Squirtle has a good pool, and of course Slave Driver pulls from your opponent's deck, which is competitive cards on their own. Do we think that they should be nerfed to 1 strength, and do we think that they'd be fine if they were at 1 strength, or do we think they still might be a bit of an issue?
I think 1, and it's still going to be an issue. The problem is you can still chain them out super hard.
Exactly.
It's I don't know. 1 will help, but it's still not. I don't know. It's too good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Did they fix the bug with slave drivers where premium and regular versions of a card count as different cards?
Yeah.
Because that bug was.
I was told that they hadn't fixed that, but I might have been misinformed.
I haven't played the mirror recently enough, but basically there's a bug where if you play slave driver and your opponent also plays slave driver, but they have premium and regular count as different cards, and slave driver can't pull itself. So if you play a regular slave driver and they have premium slave drivers in their deck, your slave driver can pull their premium slave driver, and then if you play their premium slave driver, you can then pull their regular slave driver and then pull their premium, and then you basically just cover the whole board in slave drivers.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they said they fixed it in the last hotfix, but I don't know if it's actually fixed. Because,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the topic of slave driver, I actually heard a pretty good suggestion, which was, they could have it at 1 strength, and then it could kind of deal 1 damage to the unit that comes out. That would be a way to have it as a 0 strength card effectively, but also a little bit of flavor as well without turning it into a spell.
That makes it so good against Skellige.
Well, kind of. Skellige don't really care about damaging their own units anymore, though.
Yeah, but is it Berserker Marauder? The one that turns into a bear.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
maybe if it just killed itself. And only itself.
Yeah, but then you're setting up your ointments.
Yeah, it's true. It's not even yeah.
It's a tricky
Maybe
one.
make it a spy.
Oh god, but then you just run it in spy decks.
Yeah.
God, I'd love to see a spy mirror with slave driver as a disloyal unit.
Give it disloyal, but no tag, and then it kills itself upon played. No, but then you could Vico it. No.
Doomed. But then if it's doomed, you can't ointment it.
Oh my god.
This is too difficult to balance. See.
This card.
Oh dear.
God.
I don't know how you fix it.
Let's make it 1 point and then. Oh, will it? I think 1 point is fine. Yeah.
I
make it
honestly
one
don't
point.
necessarily think it would be too bad at one point. Like I'd like to see it at one point, and I'm optimistically hopeful that it would be totally fine there.
Yeah,
But-
but if you make it 1 point, then you draw it more consistently with your marching orders because you don't have to toss up of whether you're going to get
True.
Nekavara Novice or not. So it's actually a buff if you think about it.
Yeah.
I heard someone arguing that it's bad versus consume, but you can do this thing versus consume where you neck a warrior it, and then you get their slizzards and just start eating slave drivers over and over.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't found a bad matchup for that card yet.
Yeah, there kind of aren't in this meta. I mean, in theory, there will be in the future, but it's a hard card to get a bad matchup out of. Most notably, just because it rolls you 3 different cards every time, so you can't like hit the same copy of a card and have less than 3 good options, right? There have to be basically at least 3 bad options in one specific deck to have a bad matchup. Then, and even then, you're pretty rarely even hitting all those.
Honestly, like I would be completely fine with create just in general showing the same card like it does with if you have a premium or a non-premium.
Yeah.
So like you can roll potentially the same card on all 3 choices, because that would be a pretty big nerf to create in general if they want to keep it, not competitively viable, which was what we were told. Don't know how that ended up, but yeah, I think that would be a really good fix actually.
But then it would be like more RNG, so
Yeah, because you have less agency in that case.
you
Yeah,
you
but
don't even have a choice. Let's say then you get 3 times Neca, and then shit.
Yeah, but that's the
It's
point. That means
fine.
less
Okay.
people will run it, right? Because it's more RNG. It's like worse RNG in general. So it's enough. That's how I feel. Like it shouldn't be viable in competitive play. That's my opinion anyway. I'm a
What, create in
purist.
general or
Yeah, create in
specific
general.
create cards?
In general, create.
But Usurper is so much fun. Like, I don't know. I like why people. I get why people don't like create in a competitive environment. But on the flip side, like, if you're streaming for hours, like create is so much fun. Like, you never have a dull moment with Usurper. It's always good. It's always good. And people are like, you should play Yan. I'm like, I'm playing Usurper. Then I can play Yan. It's fine. But we did have a poll on the Gwentlemen Twitter, which you should all follow, about which decks. Well, we asked people which decks they wanted to see buffed, or you'd like to see tweaked, and the most popular ones were Cursed Northern Realms, Skellige Queensguard, and Monsters Moonlight. So, does anyone have any suggestions for how these decks could be bumped up a little bit?
Well, without actually naming suggestions, I want to quickly say, I think that a lot of people, especially in terms of what they hope from this hotfix, are very oriented with nerfs. People want dwarfs to be nerfed, maybe something in Nilfgaard or Consume to be nerfed. But I'm actually more hopeful of like buffs across the board. Like obviously, it's a given that dwarfs will come down in some way. But I think after that, the best way to increase diversity is to bring out these small decks. And I'd really love to see Kirstenar specifically get a buff. I'm really excited for what that could bring.
Yeah, Kirstenar, it's got such a good theme to it. Like the cards look so cool, and like Revenant is a really cool idea, but it just doesn't work on paper, right?
Yeah,
so that's the problem. I'd like
Exactly.
to see it like good as well, and it has a lot of the tools in place as well. Whereas things like Moonlight is just so half baked that it needs more than just a buff to like be viable.
Yeah,
Like
I couldn't agree more.
like there's just so much lacking in Moonlight that it's insane. And like
Yeah.
I like in PTR, Visher and I were pushing for like Moonlight to be on Dagon, but a certain person was vehement that everyone would only play Dagon if Moonlight was on it. And I think we see that to not be the case at the moment. So I'd like to see Dagon given Moonlight and maybe a Moonlight gold existing. Like maybe applying it to both sides or something as a gold, like with a bit of a body or something.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Something
think
like that.
on the topic of Kirstenar, what I love about its identity is that if it enables such low play rate cards inherently, right? Like it enables you to run cards, and some of them are great cards like Zoria Runestone and even Uma's Curse, which I mean, honestly, like not even a joke, because when you attach that like extra 4 points, that Revenant trigger, even just from one Revenant to a card like Uma's Curse, like it becomes like a lot better. No bamboozle. And a lot of the other like just low play rate spell cards can really just come up immediately if Revenants are viable. And I think that'd be really interesting for the meta.
One of my subs has been playing a lot of Cursed NR, and he keeps laughing every time someone plays Iris against him because you turn it into a knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that literally today because I wasn't sure if it was going to work, and I'm like, right, guys, this is a learning experience. We're going to find out if transforming it into a knight will trigger or not. And it doesn't. So they play Iris, and you turn it into an 8-strength knight. It's really fun. Maybe like they could. I don't know if they could buff the Revenant, but make it so that the one it spawns has decaying strength. So like it's a 10, and then the one that it spawns is a 9, and then an 8, and then a 7, and then so that makes the initial one less easily removed, but the subsequent ones get easier to remove so that you can stop the chain. Because the problem is like if you buff him and then he spawn, like if you make him a 5, for example, then every single extra Revenant you get out of it is also buffed. So it's not just a 1-point buff; it could be like a 6-7 point buff. So it kind of depends.
I kind of like that idea. And to chat. Guys, 10 was a random example. Like, obviously, it wouldn't actually be 10 strength. I think the design of that is pretty cool.
But pulling, there was just like an example, so that eventually it gets weaker to the point. Because at the moment it's 5, so there's a lot of easy ways to just get rid of it.
Exactly. And also, it inherently becomes too snowbally at that point, and that's something that they've like wanted to rein in a lot of updates. The important thing about these cards designs is finding out a way to make them kind of not so binary and not so snowbally. And I think that kind of example, that kind of suggestion, is a great way to accomplish that.
I also love that chat is disgusted at the idea of a 27-point bronze after playing 3 spells. So a 27-point bronze with some sort of engine, but they're totally okay with like a lot of the current bronzes. It's just I'm not saying 10, but I think like that's one of the ways that you could maybe improve the deck, because the issue it really has is that when people just keep shutting down your Revenants, it's kind of a pain because you can't really resurrect. Well, you can't resurrect them because they're doomed, so you have to kind of draw them or high roll Ada. So you're kind of already limited in that regard.
Yep.
So I don't know.
In the PTR, Revenant was pretty busted for a bit. I can't remember why. I think they gave it the Doom tag.
It was because you could use it with Field Medic, and Field Medic could recycle a used Revenant into your deck, and you could pull it out again. And of course, you could res it with Sabrina Spectre.
Right, yeah. And also Shani gave. Oh no, because Shani gave it curse. Yeah.
Well, that wasn't.
Oh no, and it gave it the armor, so you couldn't kill it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's a large part of the reason why they kind of came out of the gate so underwhelming. It's because CDPR devs were honestly rightfully kind of concerned with how that card might turn out. So I mean, hopefully we'll just see it getting buffed in a kind of a minor way. But on a different topic, Petrify, you were talking about Moonlight being half baked, and I could not agree more with that. I mean, I feel like I would love to see that being made viable or more interesting, but as it is right now, and this is something I was saying like a little bit earlier, but because of how it works, because it's only supported by bronzes, which kind of make you choose one or the other, like every bronze is either for full moon or full blood moon, how it works is it's not really one build, right? Like how by design, it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be kind of like Druid from Hearthstone, where it's kind of like you get to choose between these two things, and it's kind of like, cool, what do I do? Buff my side or damage theirs? But that's not really how it works in practice, because you just end up building either a blood moon deck or a full moon deck.
Yeah,
and
exactly right.
And that basically just makes it kind of like Eridan Weather, because you just play Siren, you play Full Moon, and then it's basically like a different way of playing, Hound for Frost, right? So I'd love to see them implement some like golds or silvers that can do cool things, that can kind of like allow you to have more of a hybridized Blood Moon and Full Moon deck.
Honestly, would Moonlight be even broken if it like applied to both sides when you played it? It would be strong, don't get me wrong, but would it be broken? Like, I don't know, I'd have to test it.
They would have to tweak the numbers in some way, I think.
Yeah.
But, or make it not pullable by Siren, but some kind of idea like that, I actually kind of can get behind. I think they really do need to, not necessarily completely rework, but revamp Moonlight in some way, because the current way it works just doesn't really incentivize any kind of like unique game strategy in the way that it kind of like almost seems like it was designed to be.
Yeah, the thing for me is like you just look at most of Monster's archetypes except for Consume, and right now they are all half baked. Like
exactly.
Like look at like what is the vampire synergy? Like Drain? Like
yeah.
Like what's like I don't know. Like Ekimara and Unseen Elder and stuff like that. I don't know what that was meant to be. Unseen Elder is literally doo-doo and 4 strength. Like that's all it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. And like Deathwish, I don't know. Deathwish is lacking a lot too.
GameKing, what do you think about Moonlight?
I think, maybe just. Maybe I think it should get buffed. Yeah, maybe add some new cards to the game in like 1 or 2 months, and then some that interact with Moonlight. Maybe that's, but it will also be kind of dangerous if Moonlight is broken. Then everybody, if you don't play weather, you can't counter it, right? Like you can override it with your frosts, for example, but if there's not many weathers in the meta, then your opponent just plays Moonlight. And then if it's really good, they just wait until they win, right? Because they gain like 6 points every time or more.
Yeah.
What about putting Moonlight on Dagon? What do we think about that?
Yeah,
It's an
I mean,
interesting idea.
Fine.
as I said, I was saying that day one at PTR and like pushing pretty hard for it, but I got some resistance from a developer who said that everyone would only ever run Dagon if you put it on Moonlight. But I think they really overvalued how strong Moonlight is, especially because Dagon doesn't actually directly benefit from Moonlight itself. Yeah. So when you play Moonlight on Dagon, like if you play it positively, it's actually not that strong.
So I really like the idea of adding Moonlight to Dagon because it's so bizarre that, I mean, Monsters has two different weather leaders and one of them can kind of only make sense over the other, that being Dagon making sense over Aridin in a situation where like Foglets are stronger than they should be, which we've seen for like a few months back to back. But I don't know. In reality, it's very weird that they're so committal towards weather that they have two different leaders for it. I would like to see Moonlight slapped on Dagon so it feels like, you know, it's more drawing towards an additional archetype. But I'd also like for Moonlight to not just necessarily get some kind of point buff, like some kind of tweak to its ability to make it just stand out from like weather. Because right now all it is, you know, a positive weather and a cool on-contact effect, but there's not really a way to take advantage of the on-contact clause.
Yeah. Especially since Foglet's so bad right now that I'd like to see Dagon. I don't know why Foglet got nerfed again, but I don't know.
Does anyone have any suggestions for Queensguard?
Queensguard? Ooh.
Yeah, that's the other one people want to see buffed.
That's a tricky one.
Every card by 2.
Just buff all the Queensguard and then you're good. I mean, I guess the issue with them is that they're too low tempo, right? The problem is that the meta is so high tempo. And I think that's also exacerbated issues with spies and issues with coin flip, is that now you have so many plays that feel very strong. So then the coin flip, you know, it's harder to keep up, right? If people have a lot of kind of these bronze cards that are so high tempo, if you happen to have fewer, you can't keep up. So then the coin flip is more of an issue. And because, you know, cards now are worth like easily 12 points, bronzes, then the 13-point spies don't feel so bad. You know, when you have a 13-point spy and most of your cards you're playing around 7 or 8, then it's fine. But when you have 13-point spies and you're playing, you know, bronzes for 12, 13, 14, 15 points, that's why spies, I think, became more of an issue. And the problem there is that you can't just make spies stronger, because if you make spies stronger, then everyone just runs like Scorch and stuff.
I think the biggest problem with Queensguard, and just kind of drawing back with Gwent's history, and because we have seen a couple patches where Queensguard has been like pretty close to top tier. The biggest problem with Queensguard, ironically, is almost Ceres, which is really weird to say. So basically, the problem is there's not enough good ways to get Queensguards into the graveyard. And in the past, when we've seen Queensguards be pretty good, it was kind of before the change to Ceres. Once Ceres got changed, there were so efficient ways to use value from Bran in terms of branding Ceres, Olgierd, and Morkvarg that it soon became irrelevant to actually discard Queensguards with Bran. And once there's no reason to brand the Queensguards value-wise, there's just not really a way to play them and get them in the graveyard. I don't know. What do you guys think?
They should start the graveyard.
Because like before they changed Ceres to be such a good brand target, and before, like, you know, you had like these solid brand targets, Queensguards was mostly a way to get value out of using brands, but they've just completely lost that niche now.
But the problem is, right, if you put the Queensguards in the graveyard with Bran, then Bran is a super low tempo play, right?
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
That's also an issue as well. I don't know. I'd like to see Queensguard, I'd like to see them not just buffing cards, I'd like to see them adding new cards to support archetypes in place. So things like silvers and golds that support Queensguard would be nice. I don't know
Which
what
Ceres
they would
was
be,
kind
but
of supposed to do, but it almost did the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Drake, for instance, like something more similar to Drake. Like, because if you get Drake off a couple times, Queensguard can be good, but the problem is just the tempo, right? That's the issue that deck will always face.
Yeah, and you can no longer Sigdrift at Drake either, isn't that right?
I'm not
Or is that
sure.
wrong?
Yeah, I think she only targets clan units.
I wouldn't know. I've never played Drake since this update.
No,
Yeah,
but
I didn't play Drake before the update.
it's a similar issue actually with Holger Blackhand as well, because you're putting points into the graveyard, but you're not really seeing that value at the time. So then when people are making these crazy chain plays, you don't keep up, because it doesn't matter if you've buffed your graveyard if they're like 30 points ahead and pass, and you can't catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, Queensguard is a tricky one. I mean, that's
Queensguard is rip.
Queensguard has always been one of the hardest archetypes to balance throughout the history of Gwent, just because every time you like change the numbers on it, and they've changed the numbers a bunch. They've changed the numbers, they've applied the veteran tag and like undone that a couple of times. Every time you change a single number, it multiplies that number by 9 already, right? Because there's 3 of them and you play them all around. So it's a really, really tricky card to balance, and they've tried a ton of different stuff. But we're even at the point where there's enough graveyard denial that it's very possible that even if they buff it up, it won't really be a threat. So, I mean, I'd like to see it being supported, like Petrify was saying, with some golds and silvers.
Also, one of the problems with Queensguard is if you make it too good right now, you can start Dopplering them, and then
Yeah,
I mean, you just getting 8 Queensguards on the board is just insane.
exactly. And Herbalist Doppler is one of the strongest things Skellige actually has access to. It's not really used that competitively right now, but I mean, it's something that is very much on the brink. Very much.
On the flip side, though, Queensguard counters Sweers, so I think we'll definitely see it at the tournament this weekend. If you don't have to put them in your graveyard, it's great. It's great.
You just play a Queensguard from hand, and you just, you're like, come on, Swears me, dude.
It's okay. If they're playing Mill, it's actually great. I don't know. I don't think it's an easy fix. I think Cursed is the one that's closest to being competitive, right?
Yes,
realistically,
for sure.
So that's probably the one that you're most likely to see some small changes to that'll bring it up. Moonlight just needs more cards, and Queensguard is.
I feel like Moonlight also needs a minor revamp, but that's just me.
What
It has
about
such cool animations. That's the worst part.
I know,
it's so good.
This patch brought so many cool animations that I was so excited to see. Stuff like Pit Trap and Dragon's
Yeah, I
too.
was just gonna say Pit
Yeah.
Trap as well.
Yeah.
Pit Trap is great. Hey, what about relics? How would you make them good?
Ooh,
Because that's another archetype in monsters that's half baked, right?
a little bit, yeah.
There's only one bronze relic.
As soon as they print a second bronze relic, that deck gets a lot better all of a sudden, I would say. That's probably off the top of my head the only thing that can necessarily make it better. I've been messing around with relics lately, and I mean the silvers and the golds do totally fine. It's just the fact that you kind of end up with a couple of bronzes you can't really use. Cards like Cyclops. I've seen Relics deck running Ancient Foglets, which feels really bad. So I would say the immediate thing is not even just a bronze that supports Relics, but just a monster's bronze that is good value that isn't necessarily tied to consume. Honestly, that's their biggest problem, because they have to hybridize their bronze pool between relics and just high value monsters cards, and there kind of aren't really any great ones.
That's just monsters in general. They're super. All their bronzes and silvers even are all tied in heavily to archetypes that aren't that good. So it's part of why create is so bad in monsters, is because for instance, you can create with Runestone and get shown 3 Crones.
Yeah, and Duragare is basically a monsters create card, and if you've ever tried using him,
he's so bad. He's here's Roach. Every time it's whoa, you're gonna create
Roach,
a beast.
Harpy, and Siren.
Yeah, it's so bad.
You can get Morkvarg, right? So
No, it's true.
yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't happen often. There's a lot of monsters bronze beasts that aren't necessarily great.
Do the creates that offer you bronze and silvers have a fixed number of silvers that they offer you? Because I feel like this is the case. I don't know, because I keep using Ada and getting geared quite a lot.
Huh.
And I can't think of a time I've ever not seen a silver in my crate. So I'm wondering if there's is guaranteed to offer you at least 1 silver. But
I once used Aguera True Form and got the only 3 bronzes that that card can offer you. So I don't think that theory's right.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Other things to touch on. Oh, we have to announce the sign-ups for Wild Hunt NA Gwentlemen tournament.
I was going to do that at the end, but yeah, we can do that now. Sure. Yeah.
Well, we're going to do questions as well, so we can announce that we can do that now, and then we can get some questions.
That'll be perfect. So yeah, what she's talking about is a new tournament that the Gwentlemen is helping. Gwentlemen are helping organize and sponsor. This is, of course, the NA tournament that you might have heard about. That Joe Snow and Pumpkin were kind of gonna do a stream that got delayed to promote it. This is the NA tournament in location in Philadelphia, and basically what you can do is you can go to a Matcherino link that I'm putting in chat right now, and if you type in the code Wild Hunt, one word, you will have donated $1, not from your own money, but just by doing that, you will have put an extra $1 in the prize pool for this tournament. So that is just a quick way you can contribute without, doing more than just like 2 clicks and help out the prize pool for this tournament.
Now I'm going to try and do this. How do I do this? I'll have to sign in. I'll do it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can contribute. The other thing is, so like you said, it's in Philadelphia, so in Pennsylvania. There's a $40 entry fee, but the entry fees all go towards the prize pool. So, it's like a poker buy-in, basically. You buy into the tournament, and then if you win, then you make some bank. And also you get to meet Pumpkin and No Control and Ocean Mud and stuff. Oh, actually, Joe Snow. I don't know if I don't know. I don't think Ocean Mud is going, but Joe Snow, I think, is going, and Pumpkin and No Control.
Yep. It's gonna be cool. There's gonna be a ton of people showing up to this event. It's really snowballed in terms of like kind of what it's been expected to be. At the start, it was just kind of planned to be like a kind of semi-casual NA tournament, but this is looking very big. I mean, it's gonna be pretty much obviously the first Gwent live NA tournament of all time, and it's actually looking to be like pretty much the biggest like somewhat open entry tournament that Gwent has ever had, right?
Will you be going, Swim?
I will probably not be going, unfortunately.
No.
The date, I would go. I would go, but the date is going to be very hard to fit into my schedule. However, I'm not necessarily 100% sure on that, so we'll see.
You gotta go and beat them all. Just it would be fantastic. You can have like a 7-game series, because that's what happened last time you played at LAN.
Oh God.
It'll be fun. As the like fun master.
Yeah.
I'm saying that this will be fun. And then they're doing a hype stream. Obviously not this weekend, but the one after that, right?
Yes, I think that's right.
There'll be more information about it then.
Yeah, so stay tuned.
I'm hoping they're getting some support from CDPR for it, because like it would be good to grow the NA scene a little bit, because obviously it's so European centric right now. So it would be cool to have like NA grow a bit.
I'm putting in this coupon code. I'm doing my part. Donate.
Will you come?
Yes! Oh, I should have made a comment.
What did you say, GameKing?
There's a comment box. Damn.
Oh, you
didn't
add a comment?
Will you fly to NA?
No. Hell no. I've done enough flying in the past.
You can wear your pirate hat. It'll be great.
The pirate hat is retired for now until there's some like more qualifier tournaments for stuff. You won't be seeing the pirate hat.
Oh God.
That's quite upsetting.
Yeah.
So I'm quite curious. Back to talking about Gwent. And this is just kind of one last thing I wanted to ask you guys about before we went to viewer questions. But how do we feel about Consume? Because obviously Consume, honestly, it's an archetype that hasn't really changed that much since even the end of closed beta. It kind of represents the same general strategy, obviously with different cards, but basically, it's a deck that plays for a super high amount of value, and if you're not teched in usually multiple techs that can beat it, although of course Swears is a bit of an exception, you'll often lose, and it leads to very binary games where you get punished or rewarded for having the answers. Do we think that is unhealthy for the game, or do we think it's okay?
I think it's unhealthy personally, and like I'm a Consume monsters boy, but I think the real problem is Neca Warriors. I think Neca Warriors just create a lot of issues with the game. Like I think Neca's is fine in general. It's just Neca Warriors that's the problem. Like,
yeah.
I mean, of course Neckers are fine if you only have 3 of them, because then you just kill 2 of them and then they're done.
Exactly, right? And it's fine. But Necker Warriors, when you get like 9 of them, then it starts to be a problem.
Yeah.
But
And
I think if
it is
you
unhealthy.
change Necker Warriors, you basically just kill Neckers. Like, no one is going to play Neckers if...
I don't know.
The thing about Necker Warriors is that if Necker Warriors don't exist, you never play Neckers early, which basically turns Neckers into kind of a short round finisher if you have consumed triggers. Like, you go into round 3 with, like, you know, 1 of Necker, 2 in your deck and a Vran, and it's at 12 points already or something like that. You're looking at a powerful finisher.
But it makes all your other consumes, like, bad, right? Because the whole point of consume is you eat a Necker, and then even though you ate the points, it doesn't matter, right?
Well, then you can start consuming things like Harpy eggs again, right? Like,
yeah,
I was doing a deck like this PTR. Yeah, it becomes more of a tempo deck because you can eat like you can eat beasts too, right? So like you can get harpies out as well. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It just becomes more of a tempo oriented deck. Like we saw tempo Unseen Elder in the last patch, but then Greedy Consume took over.
To be honest, I'm thinking that if they address Warriors, it actually might not be enough. I'd be interested in seeing like that kind of fix and see like where that goes. But there's still going to be a ton of situations where you have the 3 Neckers just kind of chaining out in round 3, and it's definitely counterable. You can definitely save something like, I guess, an Artifact Compression or a Marjo. But if we're assuming the opponent won't necessarily have anything like that, then just like the fact that you can save them and it's still very reliably going to be effectively a 40+ point bronze is definitely a bit scary.
I think a lot of the problem, like though, is with Necker, if you're using it as a finisher, you have to keep mulliganing the Necker, and like there's a lot of cost to holding them in your deck.
And you also then are risky. You're risky with Harpies then, because you're saying, you know, you can eat the Harpies and chain them out. But if you're running Harpies and Neckers, you know, you're starting to get into was it Gwent Slam levels of draw, and then, you know, life isn't so good. I don't know. I think if you remove, I'm not opposed to changing Necker Warriors or removing them, but I think if you do, you maybe have to buff consume a little bit. I know Swim thinks it's fine, but I think you'd have to give them maybe something a little more.
No, that honestly might be true. I don't know. It's kind of hard to imagine consume without Neckers in their current form, honestly. What, GameKing?
I think it would be dead with if you remove the Warriors. I think it would be almost dead.
It still might be Monsters' best option.
Yeah.
They should buff the Necker Warriors to shuffle 4 dudes in. And then you have like 18 or something Neckers.
Oh,
God. You get 4 dudes, but they go on the top of your deck.
Yeah. Oh, God. Anyway, we should be able to open it up to viewer questions now, since unless there's anything else you want to mention. So if you guys want to go ahead and any questions you have for any of us, all of us as a whole, Petrify, GameKing, any questions about Gwent Open, you can ask whatever you want and just tag at Gwentlemen in chat.
Yep, and it turns out with this Mancherino thing, you can just like sign in with Twitch or with Twitter or with Facebook or whatever. You don't have to make an account. It's super easy. I did it while we were talking. And also you can leave a comment, and I didn't realize you could leave a comment, and I'm really upset because I wanted to write something. We got some questions. Someone was asking about Coin Clash. When more Coin Clash? All caps.
To be determined.
Coin Clash was really fun. Like, I think it's definitely something that we would do again.
What is Coin Clash?
It was kind of like a sort of meme-y fashion tournament.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we had show matches between... There was Team Red Coin and Team Blue Coin, and they basically were told, you know, make fun decks. So, for example, I think one deck was like, it was meant to be a party and bouncers, so there was like a bunch of girls, and then there was like kegs, because then there was beer at the party, and then there was fog for a smoke machine. Like, whoever made this deck put like loads of thought into it. Yeah, we had a Gaunter deck where they played about 8 Gaunters or something. Like, it was really fun to watch. Like, probably some of the most fun Gwent that I've seen.
The format of the tournament was you get points for winning the game, but you also get points for like having the judges vote on who the memeiest deck of that match was. So people would build like meme decks.
That sounds fun. Yeah, I think it was on when I was away, so I didn't see it.
But yeah, we can do more Coin Clash. Let's find some more questions. Oh, people want to know if you won your game, Swim. This has been like chat's imperative.
I won my game. I promise.
But you could just be saying that.
No, I definitely won my game.
Post Gwent out.
I had like 3.5 card advantage when they left me off.
Card advantage doesn't matter against consume.
Yeah, that's true.
I have a question for you three.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Do you want Shoop to be competitive viable?
No.
No.
Like, to be perfectly honest, I am actually okay with most kind of create cards being competitively viable. I'm okay with the idea of kind of like low impact ones being competitively viable, but something like Shoop or a Guerra True Form where like it will largely decide the match, but depending on like whether you hit a target, is a little less comfortable, like a lot less.
So my issue with Shoop being competitively viable, it means that you have a deck where playing 15 different individual bronze cards is competitively viable, which means those bronze cards have to be pretty like insane, which means there's going to be a faction with 15 pretty insane bronze cards where it doesn't matter that you've chosen like to not have good, you know, the ability to blacklist or the ability to have synergies within them, because these 15 are so good that Shoop has become like the requirement for Shoop to be competitively viable, I think, is more scary than Shoop itself.
In my opinion, Shoop is a good litmus test for when like cards or certain factions' tools have kind of grown out of control to the point where you can actually have a competitive Shoop deck.
Which is what Squaretail was, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Shoop would be like, I thought when I saw this card, I was really excited about it because I thought it would be launching with like a draft mode or something, whereby perhaps the first card you get shown is a gold card, and then you can sort of start building a deck around that. So if you get shown Shoop, you can start drafting like individual bronzes or something. Like that's where I was like, okay, it would be sweet.
And then
Shoop.
you just get screwed if you just get shown 3 that already are there.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like that'd be super fun, right?
Oh god.
And I got a question similar to Game Kings. How do you guys feel about Ciri Nova? I'm especially curious about your thoughts, Game King. Do you think it's a problem for the game?
I think it's not a problem, but maybe only in regards of the coin flip. So yeah, if you lose the coin flip, you have to basically overstat your opponent by at least 25 points, right? And that's ridiculous, right? So if you're like 24 points ahead, you can't pass. We have to play. And that's not good, I think. Yeah. Also, if you like have red coin and your opponent played like only 11 points, and then you can just give him the spy. If you pass, you play Nova and you win the round on even cards. So
I am a huge fan of her design. However, it's definitely arguable that she's a little stronger than that she should be in terms of like a neutral card that can enable these kind of like, you know, relatively jank strategies. And of course, the bigger problem is that you can't even really nerf her necessarily, because bumping her 1 point, putting her outside of Igni range is actually relevant.
I hate her so much.
Really?
She's just such a pain. Like it's just like it just feels terrible. And then you have people who are like, he's sitting there with one card, and I'm like, okay, so you have Nova, and the person will sit there. This is the kind of person who plays Nova. They will sit there and rope till the last second to play their Nova to win the game, and it's like, come on, dude, like go meet a girl or something. Like, oh, it makes me so mad. But on the flip side,
Wow,
Villain
What the hell?
Trettenmirth has found its way into like a lot more of my decks since Nova's come out. So, you know, I don't mind. I've burned her. I've killed a lot of Novas.
Everything you've said has led me to believe that you've minded.
Oh, I do mind, but I don't mind as much as when I minded more when I wasn't running Villain Trettenmirth, shall we say?
The problem with Villain Trettenmirth is he just gets killed by Yor with meditation as well.
Yep.
Like,
and Manticore Venom, Glorious Hunt.
You're running these cards? It sounds like personal experience. Like, how did this happen? Actually, it's probably your fault that Glorious Hunt gets in play because of that spotter deck, right?
Oh god. I did not create that deck. I altered it, and I did make a variant of it, but the Glorious Hunt was being used before I appropriated the deck.
Yeah, stop appropriating decks, dude.
Petrify, what do you think about Nova? Because you ask, and I assume you have your own opinion. I'd actually love to hear what you think.
I think it's too strong. Like, I don't think the drawback is enough, and like Game King said, it's a problem with the coin flip. It fuck it. It makes the coin flip worse. It's too early in the morning for big words for me. Yeah. And like, if you get into a Nova war, then usually it's literally who won the coin flip wins the game, because like you get last say, and then the other guy ignies, and then whatever. Like, yeah.
I think the issue with her is like her requirement is met in deck building, so it's not like she's situational. She's situational in the deck builder, and as soon as you've built the deck, she's 25 points. Like going into a game, you're never going to be oh, I have to do this to get my 25-point Nova. You just have to draw it. Like the requirement is to build a deck in a certain way and draw her. So that's I kind of think where the issue is.
Yeah, and like if you compare her to like Tibor, right? Like it you just really see, or like Helma, you really see how much of a joke Ciri Nova is. Like, I don't know, it's too strong for me. I think for new players as well. I think this is a legitimate thing. Like, new players would be very angry when Ciri Nova gets played against them, I'm pretty sure, because I don't think they would be as good at dealing with her, and like, not that you can that well, but like having 25 points as the last card, like you could feel like you've done all this hard work, and then someone just plays like Ciri Nova, and you're like, oh, I guess I lose. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Realistically, Ciri Nova is actually a great card for beginners, because beginners don't have 3 copies of most cards, right? So for starter decks, like, she's really good because you only have 2 copies of most things, so you're sorted. Like, she's pretty good. I mean, maybe if you made her a boost rather than a strengthen.
I think that would help, honestly. I think it's still too good. Like, it's still like if you have last day, it's 25 points.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I like the design of the card, but it definitely could be a bit too strong for sure. I don't know. Do you think that bumping it down to 24 is an adequate solution at all? Because, of course, it puts it out of Igni range.
No, no.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
it's okay.
I think
Put
it's
it
a better
down.
card.
Put it down to 20. Put Igni down to 20. Everybody's happy.
Especially Igni players.
Yeah, but Igni used to be 20, right? Make Igni great again. Oh,
No.
dear.
It's
No.
already good.
So Shaggy keeps asking in chat what your decks are, GameKing, so can we assume that you're running Igni in every deck now?
Yes. Nope. Play around Igni against everything.
Remember at Gwent Slime you thought I had Igni in my decks, and you were like, shit, he's like so scared of Igni.
Yeah.
I kept telling him beforehand that I was running Igni.
So here's another question. Which faction do we expect to be the one left out at the Open most commonly? Obviously, it's going to depend on whether people are running Consume or not, because if they're not running Consume, I expect they're leaving out monsters, even though Eridan does gain some advantages with the flip. I'm curious what you guys think, though. Do you think that Northern Realms or Skellige is more often going to be on the cutting block? I would probably say Skellige, but some people are actually really fighting Skellige a bit underrated right now. And Northern Realms is vulnerable to Swears, which, you know, some people might actually be spooked of.
I think it'll be Skellige or Monsters will be the one not run, and it depends on whether people have decided to go for Consume or not.
GameKing?
Yeah, I think.
You think so? Yeah.
I think there's only probably 4 players with Consume, and yeah, big risk, big rewards. They either completely lose or in the
I do think we'll see all 3 of those factions, though, probably at the event. I expect at least one person to bring Skellige. Might be wrong, but honestly, the faction we'll see the least of is Gwentlemen for sure. Yeah.
It's not like it doesn't give me. I didn't bring Northern Realms. Yeah, that's what my land.
Honestly, I kind of feel like people will ban Henselt toward the end of the tournament. We saw this in the Challenger. Like, people were banning Henselt more than anything else, even though there was better decks than Henselt, because Henselt is just like, it's just like a loss on the red coin.
Yeah.
Like, or on blue, if you're like.
I was playing Henselt earlier, and I was saying, if you can get your win rate to at least 10% when you lose the coin flip, you're kind of good.
Yeah.
So,
Like, it let me run cards like Priscilla in the deck, because, like, there's just so much you can do when you know you're winning the coin flip.
Yeah.
The Henselt becomes busted.
Crazy.
Like,
so people are asking about why we think Swizz will be played a lot, but you have to consider, so Swizz is really good against Neckers, so Greedy Consume, because you just discard all of their Neckers. Swizz is really good against Henselt, because you discard their Henselt targets. Swizz is pretty good against dwarfs because if they have gone kind of greedy and only run one target for agitator, as soon as they play an agitator, you then discard all of their agitator targets, and they have a bunch of 2-point agitators. Like, this is why Swizz is seen as quite strong, I would say.
Yep.
I think it's also really good against Nilfgaard spies as well. Like, if you can get rid of like 2 of their engines, it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, they also thin very heavily.
Yeah, and like the other thing is, you can do a lot if you're running Swizz in the Nilfgaard Spies mirror. If you play an emissary on their side, you can then Swizz all their emissaries. You can also do it with like Cantarella and stuff, like if you really wanted, but it's a bit riskier.
Pretty cheeky. Anyway, I think that's going to be all the time we have today. So, any shout-outs you guys would like to give, or any plugs of any sort? Where can we find you guys? Petrify.
You can find me on Twitter at complexity_petrify. I'm usually causing some drama or some shit on there. So it's a pretty good follow. It's worth your time. Shout out to Complexity for being amazing. Also, I'd like to shout out, if you like Dungeons and Dragons, on Merchant's channel, we just started doing me, Jaggerous, and a couple others just started doing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, so check it out. It's really fun.
Yeah, we did that. That was fun.
And
I can
if
link
you
it in the
like,
chat.
if you like Slay the Spire, follow me on Twitch. I'm
You're a Slay the Spire streamer now, right? I've seen you.
Yeah.
GameKing?
Yeah, shout out to all the opponents that will get demolished this week.
Oh.
Okay, Tailbot.
Yeah, and yeah, you can find me on Twitter, GameKingHS, and yeah, that's it.
Jaggerous, do you have anyone special?
Do I have anyone special? Well,
Yeah, for
in general or for a shout out?
What?
Shout outs, go pick someone in chat. Shout outs to.
You're just gonna pick someone in
I
chat?
do this every time. Go pick someone in chat. Shout outs to
Flash
Norwegian Banana. His name is Norsk Banan. That means Norwegian Banana. There you go. Yeah, so we're learning Norwegian today. Shout outs to you for having a Norwegian name. Oh yeah, and shout outs to Matcherino, who are apparently helping with this tournament. You should all go and use the coupon code Wild Hunt. Basically, you just have to go to this link, log in with Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media that you like. And then once you've done that, it says coupon code. You type Wild Hunt, all caps, and then you contribute $1 to the prize pool. And this is crowdfunding. And considering there's 1,181 people currently watching, think of the effect you could actually have if you did that. We're currently on $93, and it was on 44 when I last checked. So
you don't lose anything except for like the time it takes to click 3 times by doing this, and you're just contributing to help grow the Gwent tournament scene. That I guess that's gonna be mine. I'm just gonna kind of continue her shout out.
And we're judging you if you don't do it.
Yeah. Anyway, that's gonna be it for us this week, and we'll see you guys on next week.